Dabu subbing. I'm going to share with you guys some crazy stuff here. Now, what we've done this morning is we have woke up to a handful of videos showing people burning snow. So we're like, man, that's not possible, is it? Well, I'm going to show you guys something crazy here. I grabbed this snow, it melts on my skin. So I'm thinking, okay, it's going to melt on my skin, it's going to melt if we put fire to it, right? Well, as you can see here, take the snow and pack the snow down. Here, I'll take the fresh scoop. Pack it up nice and tight. But what is crazy is this. Snow is defined as ice crystals of water forming in the atmosphere. As you can see right here, this snow is not melting whatsoever. There's no water coming off of it whatsoever. And the worst part about it is, once you burn this, it turns black and it smells like burnt plastic. Alright, I've heard these stories coming from Minnesota, Michigan, Georgia. Well, here you have Kentucky, right outside Cincinnati. The snow has a burnt plastic smell and it is not melting by lighter. Folks, I'm going to tell you right now, we have something huge going on here. Is it the chemtrails in the air? I'm not sure, but I wanted to do my own piece on this, see if it was real. Like I said, when I first grabbed the snow, it melted in my hand. I'm like, oh, this is going to melt from lighter. It didn't, as you just seen. No puddle. And any that you see melted here, right here, is from my hand, me picking it up. Putting the flame to it, it turned it black, and it smells like burnt plastic. What is going on here, folks? Be prepared. They're already coming, attacking. So we're going to go ahead and look at some of these questions people got, like, will you cook it? Can you cook it? Can you boil it down? Yes, many people's done it. You got smart asses out here, like, oh, you're smelling this, the butane. Dude, I've been around butane my whole life, fool. I've been around snow my whole life, even melting it, burning it. So much as a kid. And these days, things have changed. With the chemtrails in the skies, and now snow, that when you try to burn it with an open flame, it doesn't melt down in the water. It does not melt down in the water. It almost skips a state completely. And it has this burnt plastic smell. For those people that are melting it down in the pots, they are getting a very murky, cloudy type of substance left in the bottom of their pan. And this is multiple people that's told me that. And other people want to be smart asses as well and say, well, why didn't you try an ice cube? Well, you know, I can't do it all. But at the same time, other people out here have done it. And all across the United States, let's see, where's the video at? I believe it's this guy right here. He pulls out an ice cube and he tries it right there. Same thing. You will not see a drop of water come off the snow, but that ice cube melts completely. And as he states in the video, there's no smell of burnt plastic. So the ice cubes do not have the same effect as this snow that's coming down out of the atmosphere. I think it's kind of obvious that what's happening here is something's taking effect in the atmosphere. What are we seeing here as of late, the past few years? Chemtrails. All through the skies. You didn't think it was going to have an effect on our weather, in the rain, in the snow? Well, the rain can hit the ground and run off. The snow sits there in this crystallized state, so whatever is being caught in it crystallized is in there. So, like I was saying, if anyone out there has a connection to somebody with a lab, a college lab, that is off the streets here and really wants some answers, I don't want no government-connected person, anybody with the media, with the mainstream media, trying to press some agenda that it's just normal, whatever. Yes, you're going to hear crap. People are going to come and say, yes, it's excessive carbons burning off, leaving the black. Yeah, that's true. What about the burnt plastic smell? Huh? They're going to try to walk their way around this every way they can, so be prepared. The bottom line is this. Do not let the media, these trolls and these shills, erase your memories and your thoughts of your life as a child. All your memories of what snow really is in the properties of it, what it does. Because right now it's not the same. It is not right. That's a guarantee. And all these people singing it aren't just all kooks. No. It's the fools trying to turn the other cheek and trying to call you a kook that are the kooks, that are the trolls, that are the shills. And we've got something huge here, guys. Like I said, they've melted it down in the pots. They've got a very murky substance. They've tested the ice cubes, completely different. This snow is not wanting to break down under an open flame. So, regardless, I'd say yes, a lot of it is snow, but the compounds of it are made of different materials. The key here is if anyone out there has a connection to somebody at a college campus lab that wants to run some tests for us and try to get some results, we might get some answers. Besides then, all we're going to get are dirty-looking snowballs that smell like burnt plastic, and that's all we're going to know. So, respect the comment section. Like I said before, you see trolls and shills coming here, guys. It's your comment section too. Flag
from the King James, the power of miracles. What? Well, right here in Indiana, that's exactly what's happened. There's been a miracle that has literally shaking up an Indiana town, Newcastle, Indiana, as a paralyzed man from the waist down stood up and walked. Now, this 20-year-old young man named Joel Haller, he was a high school basketball player there in Newcastle, Indiana, and was actually playing college basketball in Hope College, Michigan. When in October of 2013, he woke up in the morning and was paralyzed from the waist down. Now, he had had back trouble. He had had herniated disc and back pain since he was 14. But, I mean, you just don't expect to wake up. You're an athlete, and you're paralyzed from the waist down. They took him to every doctor they could, some of the finest doctors in the land, they say, and the doctor said, we don't understand why, but you are definitely paralyzed, and we don't know what else to do for you. Now, they tried to do some kind of robotic walking therapy. That didn't work. The young man was paralyzed, in a wheelchair now, a college athlete. But then he had a dream, and last night my wife got a hold of him, and I talked to him on the phone. And he's going to be my guest tomorrow. Dream, he saw a calendar that had the letter J23. He didn't know what it meant, but later when he went to church, a young 4-year-old boy walked up to him and said, "You're going to walk on Thursday," just out of nowhere. And folks, when Thursday, January 23rd came, he stood up and walked. Let him break the whole story down. It's amazing. Don't miss it. Tomorrow, Joel Haller will be my guest. Let me tell you, the Bible's in the last days. The Lord said, I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh. Your sons and your daughters are going to prophesy. The old men are going to dream dreams. Young men are going to see visions. And upon my handmaidens and servants, I'm going to pour out my spirit. Thus saith the Lord. Are you saved? Get saved now.
Now on to the wonderful world of science.
Ta-da! We have, in our wonderful world of science this week, zombie bees. We featured a number of zombie insects on this show, and this I think is kind of super extra fascinating. These zombie bees, basically some wacky scientist in Northern California needed to feed a praying mantis. He had a hungry praying mantis. So he, went out, looked on some light fixtures, and went, oh, there's some bees, and bottled like a little vial, captured one of the bees outside like the lab, put it in a vial, and like the absent-minded professor that he is, that's a quote, he forgot about that vial. My question is, did he actually feed the praying mantis? That's where I went. I was like, did he just forget to feed it, or were there more? Anyway, so he leaves the vial on his desk for a week and comes back, and the bee is dead. But around it, there are all of these like little brown pupa. And so he goes, huh, there must be then a host that is feeding on this bee and then hatching eggs in it.
Parasite.
Ew, parasite. So, so they do some research. They do a whole bunch of research, and then they discover that what's actually happening is that they're depositing the eggs into the abdomen, but then the bees end up they like walk around in circles with like no sense of direction. They're just kind of wandering. They kind of are like wobbly. They're shambling about, and then they eventually they last about a week. They die, and then more are hatched. They also, surprisingly, this I think was interesting. They switched the bees' actual natural inclination to be. They changed them to nocturnal. So they turn into nocturnal bees, and it takes them away from the nest, which forces the younger worker bees to have to compensate. And so this is actually resulting in the collapse of hive colonies all over.
Honeybee society.
And what I think is also, in my mind, I was like, oh, everyone keeps blaming it on cell phones. Maybe it's actually zombie larvae. So while this is, not necessarily, one of the more popular ways to look at the zombie epidemic going down, it's kind of more like alien meets zombies, because they're like using the host to populate more of their own. But who knows? This is an interesting thing to think about. What if you get bit by a zombie and then
become a zombie?
Oh wow. Have you been stewing on that?
Yeah, he's been thinking about the
I was just waiting for that.
Been
I
waiting
walked
for it.
right into that, didn't
The
I?
opportunity for that.
So yeah, but then if you are becoming a host and gestating more of the virus, and then when you perish of whatever, then more move on past you. It's kind of in that Return of the Living Dead sort of thing. It just populates more. I don't know. It's something very interesting to consider and to think about. And the fact that there are more and more of these insects and more of these flies and parasites and whatever around, it's a little unnerving.
This is one for the record. I'm Diana. Today is January 31st, 2014. Here are your news updates for today. This is the third time I'm trying to do this. Hang in there. It'll be up and running. If not, I'll just attach everything and you won't see me tonight. That's all. Alrighty then. Let's go to the Extinction Protocol 2012 and beyond. New eruption phase reported at Ecuador Tonquejara volcano. Also, Shishalind volcano's alert status upgraded after unusual activity. Also, let's go into the watchers watching the world. What's happened here? Let's see if we can get into the watchers watching the world. Maybe that's what something's going on with the watchers. Alrighty then. Let's see what's going on here. Craziness. Alright. Aluminum induces neurotoxicity by altering mitochondria of brain cells. Heads up. Isn't there aluminum in the chemtrails? Asteroid diversity points to a snow globe solar system. Also, increased surface temperature and steam emissions observed at Shishalind volcano. Alrighty then. Moving on. E&E News, Energy News. Nothing new on U.S.-Canada E&E News, Japan, Fukushima. Wall Street Journal, potential lethal strontium-90 moving deeper into groundwater at Fukushima. Levels rising. Asahi. Radioactive material spreading below underground wall next to ocean. Record high on other side of final barrier by Unit 3. Also, New York Times. Widespread public distrust of NHK over Fukushima radiation cover-up, reports President's resignation last month related to coverage of nuclear issues. Former NHK employees speak out, gross political interference. Also today, NHK, more damage being discovered in Fukushima reactor number 1, destruction at containment vessel. Concerned about tons of water draining from unknown cracks and holes. Also, nuclear engineer, even worse news at Fukushima plant. Radioactive water has formed pathway and is flowing straight into Pacific Ocean. Alrighty then. It is 5 days down. You made it. We've made it. Be safe. Make sure that you have emergency supplies in your cars if you're in the snow. Stay away from the snow. There's something plastic in it, supposedly. Just until everyone knows what's going on in the snow, please, don't play with it. Don't let your pets play in it. Alright? And it took an old Marine on his channel. He had to use a propane torch to melt a snowball. Also, he had to put a snowball on top of his stove. It doesn't sound right to me. Alrighty then. Take care. Don't be distracted by this. Be prepared for anything. Keep a snowsuit in the back of your car, some water, food, supplies, pet supplies if your dog's with you, and a porta potty. Also, maybe a couple of those things that cover your windshield. Get 2 of them so you have the front and the back in case you're stuck in your car for 12 hours. Alrighty then. Also, I want you people to look up flower pots. There's alternative heat. I want you to look that up. Flower pot heaters. And watch some of those videos. Maybe get some good ideas from that. Alright? And I'm going to attach some videos that might make you feel warmer. So, I'll see you again on the flip side. Stay tuned, be safe, and be prepared for anything. Alright, take care.
The mountains of the Missouri Ozarks. On Friday, the 31st day of January, year of our Lord 2014. Welcome to the John Moore Show. Well, Joe Salente was interviewed by Alex Jones. You can see the interview at Alex's website, Prison Planet. I urge you to consider watching the interview. Very well done. I'm reading a book. It's available on Kindle. The title of it is Oh Shoot. I'm being polite here. Shoot, spelling S-H exclamation point T. Book number 1 by Michael K. K-A-Y-E. It's a novel about an apocalyptic economic collapse. It looks like you're reading today's headlines, quite frankly. A very well done book, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it. We got some interesting Earth Change headlines at standayo.com, but I also want to mention an article written by Judge Andrew Napolitano titled A Sorry State of the Union. It's posted at WorldNet Daily. At standayo.com, there's a series of storms moving across the Atlantic Ocean towards Great Britain. In southern England, they've had weather records there since 1910, about 104 years. And it's the wettest winter since they've kept records for 104 years. Winds up to 150 miles an hour expected from this series of storms, which will start hitting there today. The drought continues in California, and so forth. Plenty to look at there at standayo.com. I'm hoping that Ann Morrison will call in this morning. I don't have any notice yet that she has, and if she does, she'll be with us.
I'm here.
Okay. My engineer didn't let me know you were there, Ann. Thank you for being with us. these multiple flu viruses continue to do their thing, and of course we're right in the middle of flu season, aren't we, Ann?
We're right in the middle. That's right. It started a little bit late this year, and so we don't have good statistics because the reports that are being issued start over January 1st, and so we don't really have the accumulations through 2013. But for the H7, for the for the swine flu, for the pneumonic swine flu, it's hitting people in the Middle Ages, the 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, and in fairly good health. Some of them have been vaccinated, some of them have not, and it is a multi-organ failure experience in some cases. In some cases, it's pneumonic. They put the people on ventilators and then they die. They've added kidney dialysis because the people that, they're hoping to keep them alive and putting them on a ventilator doesn't. So anyway, this thing is, and then some people have died of multi-organ failure. So we don't know if it's hemorrhagic. It may be hemorrhagic. This is the same flu that in 2009 was first discovered by the Navy in San Diego. The Navy does a really good job making sure that they don't send any sick people out to sea on a crowded ship. And they encourage they check the health of all the members of the Navy, and then they also check their families. And they're pretty smart there. And they discovered this, what is called A 2009 California. Well, we know that a bioscientist was down in near the Yucatan, and he was working with swine flu, and we don't know that he manipulated it, but he was down there. He was working with swine flu, and then the people that were in that area began to die, and he hightailed it out of there. Haven't heard from him since. So it started in Mexico, but it was diagnosed first in the United States, so that's why it's called what did I say it was called? California. Anyway, 2009 California. So it did damage, although at that time there were not reports of multi-organ failure. People just got a respiratory flu and they died from that. So but it was an epidemic. It became a pandemic, so that means that it was fairly serious. Right. It was widespread. And now we have it back, but we're not sure we have the same thing back because Taiwan diagnosed it. It passed their, people who had it passed through their rapid test, their flu test, and they discovered that these people were dying from H1N1. And so they relabeled it pneumonic H1N1, and that was last January, so that was a year ago. And sent out a notice, a report. But apparently our people over here missed the ball, and so they used the same rapid test here that they'd used the previous year, and according to the Taiwan experience, they didn't catch it either. So they had these people who were coming in with respiratory distress and dying. And finally, some of the local public health people down in Texas around Houston did more testing, and they said, "Oh, this is our old friend H1N1, but it's more serious." So, putting together the fact that it was first discovered on Taiwan, which is just across the strait from China, it's very likely that the Chinese made it more lethal, and it's mostly in North America. It's not seen in Europe or in Asia. So that's the bad one. But I do have a solar alert to give. And
okay, please, yes.
Yes. There is a sunspot called AR 1967. I don't know where you were in 67, but I was still in high school, John.
1967, I was in Vietnam, my dear.
Oh, my goodness. They do take them young. Anyway, it unleashed in Class M. I remember the classes are B, C, M, X, and then the X2. Uh-oh.
We have a break. We have a break. Call number is 800-313-9443. We'll be right back. All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. This is J.R. Moore. It is Friday, the 31st day of January. And let's just jump right back in there.
Certainly, John. Okay, so what I want to tell you, I mean, this is very serious. This flare, this sunspot activity, released a flare, and it was yesterday, and it was an M6.6. Now you have to remember this is a logarithmic scale, and if you remember that, then you know that it's not equally distanced between 1 and 10. You know, the graduations are bigger at the lower ends. This is, if it were on a linear scale, this would really be more like a 8.5 or something. It's closer to an X than you might think. It's not halfway between an M1 and an X1.
All right.
And M6.6 occurred at, well, it was 10:17 Central Daylight Time, our time, and I actually saw the UV flash. Again, I thought I was having a visual disturbance, and so I didn't. You know, I thought, I better sit down because who knows what's going to happen next. Nothing else happened, and then I picked up this report, and I realized it would happen at the same time this UV flash was emitted. It was accompanied by a UV flash and a very fast-moving coronal mass ejection and hard protons, and they do expect the CME to hit Earth. Now, you wouldn't think that because the sunspot is over on the, well, I would say left side of the sun, but it is at the meridian. And the fact that what you said, that there was a cyclone developing in the North Atlantic, west of Ireland, is that this flash would exacerbate that. And that's probably why it's turning into a cyclone, because we've seen that with other UV flashes, where we've had an intensification. Remember the storm that hit Sardinia?
Right.
Well, that was just a run-of-the-mill low-pressure system until there was a UV flash over Europe, well, over a bit, close to longitude 0, and then it developed into that devastating storm. They called it a cyclone, I believe, and that just wiped out Sardinia. Sardinia is just west of Italy, at the tip of Italy.
Right.
So, and I said that I would also expect the winter storm. We have Maximus coming down on us, and it's coming in from the northwest. Now they haven't included St. Louis County, but I noticed they're talking about a 1/4 inch of ice down your way,
right,
and north of us. So a 1/4 inch of ice on our roads pretty much stops the traffic.
Pretty much, yeah, until they get some salt or grit or something down. It does, yes. Yes.
So this flare lasted for 50 minutes. That's almost an hour. And they say that the location of it, although they're attributing it to 1967, they're saying that the location is South 13, East 58. Well, East and West go from 90 to 90, and North and South go from 90 to 90.
Right.
So South 13 is just below the meridian, the horizontal meridian on the sun, and then East 58 is almost halfway to the center of the sun. So it definitely could strike Earth. I agree with them on that. And it had hard protons as well, and I hope that the people on the space station got warning. There are hardened places in the space station that they can go. But all the satellites would have been hit by the hard protons. Protons are not as dangerous to satellites as electrons. Electrons will short out the batteries, and then they have battery drainage problems. So anyway, our atmosphere is loaded with protons from this flare and from a previous flare, and we can expect that when the CME, the coronal mass ejection, hits, it'll break the magnetosphere, and whatever electrons are at the satellite level will pour into the along the magnetic lines of force. And so we should see auroras. We may see them at low latitude. There might be some interruption of power of the grid. I mean, I'm not saying this is the one, but this is one that we need to watch so that we know what just minimally can happen, but it could be the one that would wipe out the power grid.
Well, I was just reading this morning a little bit about EMP effects, and just to reiterate what you're saying there, and the top officials in the government are saying it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, either a natural event or a man-made EMP event.
Well, we know that the Carrington event occurred in 1859 during a solar minimum, and a solar minimum in that it was there were a couple of solar cycles that didn't have any flares at all, and then we got that big one. So just the fact that maybe it's like earthquakes. If you have, they say that if the small earthquakes relieve the stress. Now I don't know that I believe that, but that's what they say. And they say, well, if you have a lot of little earthquakes, then you might not get a big one. Well, maybe that's the way it is with the sun. If you have a lot of flares, but they're very big, then maybe that relieves the stress and you don't get the big one. And if you don't have flares, then you might get a big one. But anyway, that was in 1859, so we're talking 25 years ago.
Right, more or less, yes.
And at that time, there was enough current induced in the telegraph lines. At that time, they had telegraph. That some of the instruments burned up. Some of the operators were shocked and were injured. And that was reported in England, not so much in the United States.
Well, there were fires started in some of these telegraph offices. In addition, barbed wire fences started fires out in some of these dry fields also.
EMP, whether natural or man-made. However, in the United States, the people that make the decisions, and this is a civilian group. It's not a government group. Civilian group decided that they weren't going to harden. Well, I don't want to say harden. They weren't going to take that precaution. It would cost too much. Yada yada yada. I hate it when the people in charge are bean counters. Let's get some engineers up in there, or somebody that knows what's going on. Anyway, so we're very vulnerable to an EMP, and especially our nuclear plant. We've had numerous occasions where we've had flares and CMEs come in, and they have created ground current. The CME will create a ground current as well as a current in an electrical line, and they have burned out their emergency diesel generators that were setting out on the tarmac that were in standby mode. So this is a serious current. It'll burn out ham radios and other television and radio stations. So, if the power goes down, if the cell phones get affected, of course, each cell phone tower is now supposed to be covered by some kind of emergency diesel generator. And what the cell phone operators have decided is they put these emergency diesel generators on trailers and they have them stacked up someplace. And if the cell tower goes out, they'll pull one over there and start it up.
I've seen propane tanks and gensets next to some of these cell towers, and most of them I don't.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They have them, but they don't store them by the cell tower because in many cases that would be illegal and dangerous.
Well, it'd also be an attractive threat for being stolen. We got a break. Call-in number is 800-313-9443. All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. This is J.R. Moore. It is Friday the 31st of January. During the break, I was thinking about how my grandson will be graduating from high school in about a year, a little bit more than a year, off to college. We don't know where. He's getting letters from colleges around, universities around the country. I'll be talking to his mother and getting him set up with something similar to what freeze-dried guy has here, the adult danger close 3-day bug-out bag. There's 4 MRE meals in there, 2 Mountain House breakfast pouches, 2 16-ounce lunch pouches, 2 Mountain House 20-ounce dinner pouches, escape and evasion water filter, Sparky fire starter, individual first aid kit. I would supplement that probably with a poncho, a good quality folding knife, multi-tool, probably some water, and a good quality flashlight, those kinds of things. But check out what Freeze Dry Guy has there. Many of you listening to me have grandchildren who are off to school, college, like I'm talking about here. Other people that have long commutes. It might be a great distance from their home. We had that just this week in Atlanta, where people found themselves a great distance from home and stuck wherever they might be stuck. And so check out the details at freezedryguy.com. There's a link to my website, thelibertyman.com. Toll-free auto line, Pacific Business Hours, 866-404-3663. And we got a caller on hold here, regular caller, and John in Tennessee. Good morning, John.
Hey, John.
Good morning, John. Hi, Ann. John, I've got some disturbing news that I heard about. I was wondering if you could maybe be able to help me. Have you heard reports of snow that will not melt over open flame?
I saw the headline, and I don't know what to make of it. I have not read the story. Did you read the whole story, John?
Well, I actually watched a video of it. The guy filmed himself walking out into his driveway, picking up snow, making a snowball, holding it over a gas flame, and it did not melt, but yet when he put it in water, it did melt. I've also read a report of radioactive snowfall in Missouri, and they're calling it Fukushima snow.
Right. That was a local guy, a local for us in St. Louis guy that has been doing a lot of reports. Yes.
Put a Geiger counter on it, and it was pegging the meter. So I'm wondering, have you got snow on the ground? Is it something you could go try?
Well, we don't at the moment. Ann, your follow-up?
Well, we have several sources of radiation around the St. Louis area. Yeah. So I don't know that. I suppose that a physicist might be able to tell you it came from Fukushima, but
John,
I don't think a guy with a Geiger counter could.
I have a question for you, John. The gentleman who put together the video about the snow that didn't melt, did he give his name and location and so forth?
Yeah, he was in. In fact, I can send a link. But anyway, it was actually not just not melting, John. But there was one where he was holding a flame under it, and it was turning black and smoking as though it had some kind of a polymer in it.
Right.
It was not melting snow.
But he did give his name and give his location.
He's got an actual YouTube video channel, and from the other posts on there, he appears to be a Christian man. So I mean, he's got other posts that are very accurate.
Well, hopefully some samples of this were saved and could be tested by a laboratory someplace and figure out what this is.
He said it wasn't melting in his driveway. It was a dusting, and he noticed it wasn't going away. It looks like snow. It's cold. It feels like snow, but it won't melt over open flame. You just go to YouTube and type in, the way that I got to it was East Coast fake snow event.
Right.
The first one was in Pennsylvania, but this guy was in Ohio, down around Columbus, I believe. And it was pretty odd. We haven't had any snow here at all. Although one day it was last Saturday morning, the sun was out, and not a cloud in the sky in Nashville, and it was raining snow pellets. It actually looked like potassium pellets falling from the sky, covered the interstate, but the sun was out. It's like a winter sun shower. It wasn't ice, wasn't sleet. It looked like potassium pellets falling. So, I don't know. Check it out and let me know what you think.
Okay. Well, thanks for the call, John.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Well, that's fairly serious. But I'm glad that I'm going to take some of the credit for people having radiation detectors, because I think that we've been broadcasting that for a couple of years now. People need to have radiation detectors, and they need to take measurements and get aware of what's going on around them. And people are doing that, John.
Well, that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
I typed in the
link.
the link here, and there is a video. Obviously, I'm not going to play it now while we're live on the air, but it may be a real deal. It would be pretty phenomenal if it was, or it might be somebody's fantasy. I guess we'll find out.
It was reported in the national news.
Really?
Well, yeah, I just saw a little. It wasn't an hour-long presentation. You know, it was like a 15-second. Oh, by the way, there's a plastic snow in North Carolina or something to that effect.
Well, that's strange to say the least. Well, we are kind of touching on the Fukushima radiation event here, right at the edge of it. Any updates on that end?
Well, yeah, a couple of them. There is a. Excuse me. We have a report here from Washington, D.C., and he's a civil engineer, professional engineer from Polytech Worcester. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. Polytechnic Institute in Massachusetts. And he says the Fukushima nuclear accident dispersed airborne dust that are contaminated with radioactive particles. And we've said that. When inhaled or ingested, these particles can have negative effects on human health. You know, that's true, but I would prefer to say something to the effect that they can kill you. I mean,
right.
Negative effects on human health, or kill you, or something like that.
Right.
Anyway, they did some soil sampling. Now, this is just topsoil sampling. So they went out, they collected some topsoil. And I used to work in the laboratory out at in St. Charles where I worked, and they would do soil sampling out there, so I'm very familiar with what he was doing, except that they didn't seem to geocode the data, which is unusual, and I don't know what laboratory they used. You know. But anyway, they said what they did was they did it along the West Coast, so they did it along the coast of Washington, Oregon, and California, and specifically the outskirts of Portland, Oregon. And they have actual results here contained up to 8 nanocuries per kilogram of radiocesium. I'm assuming he's talking about cesium-137, cesium-134. And and then they have results here for Sacramento, Oakland, California, Alameda, California, San Diego, California, and Sonoma, California, which is up in the foothills. And what he's saying is that the Cascades. Now, the Cascades are the part of the Rocky Mountains that are in they're in the central part of Washington and Oregon, probably in the west central part. And the winds would come across, and of course the Cascades are fairly high. They're over 10,000 feet high, and so dust, the winds would slow down, and what happens when a fluid slows down is that it drops its load.
Right.
And so he's thinking that the Cascades and the Rocky Mountains stop the dust from coming into the interior. I'll say on the east side of those mountains.
Right.
But the people on the west side of the mountains, the Continental Divide, they may be exposed. And of course, it'll work its way. If it's in the soil, it'll work its way. Radioactive, you have to think of active, the active part of radioactive. These
Right.
radioactive particles are active chemically, and they will attach to things. They will attach to things that you wouldn't believe because they're active. They're chemically active. It's like you almost never see. Well, I don't want to go into an explanation of chemistry this morning, but in any case, so he says that yes, there is from Fukushima, there are.
Hold that thought, Ann. Hold that thought. We got a break. We got a caller on hold. We'll be right back. All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. This is J.R. Moore. It is Friday the 31st of January. My website is thelibertyman.com. Thelibertyman.com. Glenn from Philadelphia. Good morning, Glenn.
Hi, Glenn.
Good morning, John. Good morning, Ann. Just economics and the sun today, real quick. First of all, I've been watching the markets overnight. The Japanese, German, French, and British markets all closed down notably, like German at 1.5%, British 1.1% almost. And this morning, the Dow futures are off by over 100 points, which translates to an opening of about 150 points down. They're predicting. So there's going to be another bad day on the markets.
It sounds like it.
Yeah,
Okay.
we see that eventually this is going to lead to a meltdown of the whole, monetary system. I kind of agree with where Dr. Deagle says this is all going. But anyway, won't go into any more details on that. About the sun, as Ann was talking before, I was reminded of the seals, trumpets, and bowls judgments in Revelation, where what always interested me, there are some people who say that, Christ is just another solar deity. But all you have to do is point to Revelation, where when you get to the bowl judgments, an angel flies from the throne of Christ and to the sun and pours out a bowl of God's wrath on the sun, which causes all kinds of interesting things. So we certainly know, even from the Bible, we have yet to see a lot of very damaging effects from the sun, and God actually uses the sun as a means of pouring out his judgment on a sinful earth. So yeah, this is going to rise to a crescendo. But that's all I wanted to say.
Well, thank you, Glenn. We appreciate the call. Another caller. This will be our last caller. Rose off the grid. Good morning, Rose. Hello, Rose.
Hi there. Good morning. Thanks for allowing me to ask a question.
Very damaging effects from the sun, and God actually uses the sun as a means of pouring out his judgment on a sinful earth. So yeah, this is going to rise to a crescendo. But that's all I wanted to say.
Well, thank you, Glenn. We appreciate the call. Another caller. This will be our last caller. Rose off the grid. Good morning, Rose. Hello, Rose.
Hi there. Good morning. Thanks for allowing me to ask a question. Well, I have two questions. I have been very concerned. I have been very concerned about these chemtrails. Because my husband, a few weeks ago, we were driving and we could see these chemtrails, the ones that don't dissipate. The reason we were able to see it was because of the moon. It was a large moon, and we could see the chemtrails in the nighttime. And there is a company that they call it Evergreen, and somebody has seen it in the airport and the vicinity where we live. And somebody made that comment to a friend of ours that's one of these companies that does these chemtrails. And my question is this: what are we going to do as a nation against all this pollution that is being thrown out at us? It's just awful. And then what are we going to do too if this thing Fukushima? Why don't we put pressure on these people, Senate and the House, to do something? How can they protect, our ocean in this area? It's just something ridiculous, that we're just going to be relying on Japan when their own government is telling their people that they cannot even speak about Fukushima.
Right. It's a complex matter, yes.
Yeah, I personally believe there is weather manipulation. I have my question marks about Fukushima because before Fukushima happened, do research who were the people that was doing the security. They left a few days before that event, and I heard this, and it just worries me, what are we going to do, we the people, are we just going to stay just hearing, or what? Why don't we...
Okay, I can answer part of that. In California, some of the cities have formed study groups, and they're going to be watching the radiation. But the latest news is that the Mendocino County Board of Supervisors has actually sent a letter to President Obama calling for international assistance to address the continuing Fukushima crises. And I think he wrote it very well. Deteriorating conditions at Fukushima Daiichi nuclear complex clearly constitute an international crisis of epic proportions that requires the highest level of international scientific and technological assistance in an effort to minimize continuing damage to international health and safety. We therefore call upon you to issue an executive order directing all appropriate federal agencies to assist in leading an international effort to avert what appears to be a looming catastrophe of unprecedented dimensions. And so there, you know, I was very unhappy that the federal government didn't get involved in this radioactive trash that's coming across the ocean to the West Coast. And so, you know, people are starting to get together in their local governments and calling upon the federal government to get involved.
Well, maybe that'll have some effect and do some good. Rose, thank you for the call. And got about 2 minutes here to wrap up our conversation for the day.
Well, we spend a lot of time talking about radiation, and people can get a radiation detector, and people are doing that, and I applaud them. McClure High School, you know, that's where the alumni were doing the reporting on the number of deaths and illnesses that had occurred among the people that were close to a radioactive dump. And there was a big fight at McClure High School. I mean, there was a big fight, and you know how it is up here in this area. It just that's what I expected, because what's going to happen is when they publish this data, the property values go down.
Right, and people will be moving out, getting out of Dodge, and pulling their kids out of school and leaving, won't they?
Yeah, you know, it's like when you can't see something, you don't worry about it. You know, and a lot of people don't want to go to the doctors because they don't want to have to think that they have cancer or anything else. Okay, just thought I'd throw that in. So we've been talking about radiation. People can do that, and certainly this plastic snow, we've got to get more confirmation on that. And why it's over the East Coast, I don't know. Maybe it is chemtrails. The flu is peaking, we hope, and we hope it's at its highest. And then it will slowly, hopefully, become fewer cases over the next month and a half until in April, people will no longer be dying from the H1N1. But if it becomes pandemic, it could go all year round. So I'm just kind of holding my breath on the H1N1. The H7N9, they think they're starting to see clusters. Now, what happens with clusters is that means that it's spreading person to person.
Right.
The MERS coronavirus, the Middle East Respiratory Syndrome coronavirus, they think now that it is being passed by medical personnel that are taking care of these patients.
Really?
And they have, generally what they have to do is they have to look at the stool in order to find the virus load. And they think that, and they say that there are people now who are carrying the Middle East Respiratory Syndrome coronavirus, but they don't show any symptoms. And that means we could have like a typhoid Mary.
Right.
These medical people, they go home, potentially they could infect their families. And of course we know that we have clusters in the MERS coronavirus, because the last report that I read was 36, and that's at a 1-to-1.
And we're out of time. We'll do some radio later today with Dr. Deagle.
All right, John, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. That's it for the day. That's it for the week. Get your medical supplies, energy cleaner now while you